to the second portion of the show. Jay and Robert, you two. Okay, hang on, before we start, because a lot of our people know you, Jay. Would Jay go ahead?
I want to say real quick, that if Robert wins, I have an autographed Golden Girls shirt that I signed with my name. And if Robert wins, I'm going to mail him the Golden Girls shirt.
Okay. So, Andy, this is a follow-up to a previous debate. I had a debate with Jay Dyer. We exchanged on universal truths, and Robert contacted us, and it was mostly, we were talking about epistemology in relation to theism, and Robert contacted us, and he said, I want to face Jay Dyer. And so I guess we can continue. We can start right here with
now,
people.
Can I open?
Yeah.
Yeah. Open on the last one.
Yeah, Robert,
okay.
You don't even... please introduce yourself to the audience, where they can find you. I did link that website or a YouTube site that you have on your Twitter down there below, and that was.
Thank you.
Let me just confirm it. It was Proxy. Was it? What was it called again?
Prax Girl.
Prax Girl. And
Prax.
And you, yeah. So the link's down there. And sorry, just give me a quick gist of that YouTube channel.
In Prax Girl, on that show, we teach the science of praxeology. That's what I do, amongst other things. I go around the world and teach this kind of unknown science that studies human action, what we're all doing right now. And
awesome. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And where's your position on the theism debate?
Yeah, I mean, can I just
do it up?
Start?
Yeah, do it up.
Great. So, I'm here today to just tell you guys that the concept of God doesn't make sense logically. It contradicts itself on the very notion of the way in which Jay talks about action. When he talks about God, he doesn't understand that God cannot act by definition of what action is. Okay, action means employing scarce means to achieve definite ends, and so that means that there's change. And when there's change, that means that you started in some state, you moved to another state. You lacked the thing that you achieved, but you gained it through using means. If you're all powerful everywhere, you don't lack anything, so you can't act, okay? But more importantly than that, what he's gonna do is he's gonna try to say that he has access to super logical information that you and I don't have, okay? He's going to say that he can tap into things that are outside of time and space. And he's going to say that the reason that you and I and everybody in the audience doesn't understand this is because it's our worldview. Okay. He's going to say that our worldview prevents us from understanding. But if we're being honest people, he can just simply show us how our logic is unsound. There's no reason to bring up this whole thing about worldview. And in fact, Jay's worldview actually relies purely on scripture. So if you talk about a book that he has to reference, he can't go off the script from scripture. He always has to keep it within the confines of the Bible, and he's going to always interpret the Bible in the way that makes it necessary. So he's going to say the Bible references things, ideas that were brought about in the Enlightenment. He's going to say they were already referenced in the Bible, okay, and I can show you how. And so once he can't prove that, because we're not going to accept, okay, we're not going to accept this whole thing about the worldview thing. So once we don't accept that and we prove that that God can't act, he's going to try to pull out these things that he thinks is the big guns, okay? And the big guns are that math is this esoteric tool that he has to finally prove that God exists. And he's going to bring up these Greek words, and he's going to say, it's the monad, all right? And he's going to say the concept of the one touches on all things. It permeates through everything. It's in you, it's in me. But more importantly, it's in Jay. And so if Jay is saying that the one permeates through him, then what he's really saying is that God is speaking through him. And if I'm having a debate with God, then I'm not having a debate with Jay. I won the debate.
All right.
All right,
Jay. Yeah, Jay, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, let me say first of all that we had this debate. So ironically, although I was told by Robert,
we didn't have a debate. We had a conversation. You asked me if I wanted to have a formal debate. I said no.
Yeah, you sent me texts that were the really talking shit. You want to have a debate? I said, let's do it. So I titled the debate. You had no problem with that. You saw it. 6,000 people have seen it. And 98% of the audience agrees that I won that debate. So we've already had this argument, which is funny because your arguments here are even worse than they were when we debated. So I don't know how you like went downhill from the debate we already had, but you said about 6 things that I took notes on that are completely incorrect. Just wait. I mean, I almost wonder, are you trying to help me or something? Like, did you come on to have really bad arguments to help? But anyway, so you said that action can't be applied to God because God transcends human category. One of the things that we didn't talk about when JF and I were debating is that I believe that when it comes to universal truths and those kinds of topics and issues or the status of those things, I think that they're proven in a different way. And I think that different disciplines prove things in different ways. So for example, the way that we would learn about the existence of an earthworm is not the same way that we would go about proving something like logic or the status of logic. So for example, you said that my argument is going to be that it's all based on revelation, and I won't make any arguments outside of what the Bible says. I would say 90% of our argumentation in our debate was strictly on the topic of epistemology and logic. And so really all you have to do to try to come at me is to try to say that there's no ontological status of universals. And that's fine if you want to go in that direction. But that is categorically false in terms of what I argued against you and what we're arguing now. I have not made a single argument based on a textual thing or a textual point. Secondly, that the idea that logic is something that I'm going to say was that, hold on, that I'm going to say was discovered by some old Greek guys and not by the Enlightenment is absurd, given the fact that the father of logic is Aristotle. So when I argued with you, we spent a significant portion of the time talking about Aristotle and what a transcendental argument was. So I didn't make any arguments about transcendental arguments from Scripture. I did point out that later on, there were church fathers who used a transcendental argument from Aristotle, but I mainly just talked about what Aristotle says in his basic logic, in his metaphysics, and I talked about what later theologians like John Damascus said when they used a transcendental argument. That's all far prior to the Enlightenment. So why you brought that up has something to do with the Enlightenment, has nothing to do with my argumentation. Secondly, you said that math isn't some esoteric thing. It's a thing that I think I have mystical intuition into. This is, again, a disputed point that all I tried to do was back up my case by saying, look, there are plenty of mathematicians who do think that mathematics has a extra mental existence. I think that there's a way to show that, but the way to show that is not through material evidence, because we're arguing for something immaterial. So if you ask me, how would I prove something immaterial, and then you demand material.
I didn't say that, Jay.
No, you did. You said that I claim that I only have access to these mystical mathematical truths. No one else does.
I didn't say
you just did say that in your argument. You just did. You said Jay's going to say there's mystical things that he has access to.
You're going beyond just immaterial things, Jay. You're saying that there's something outside of the box that we exist in that you can tap into, and I'm saying that's not possible.
Yeah, that's called an immaterial thing, and you just said I'm going beyond the material.
Immaterial things are within this box. Immaterial things are within this box.
Is the box material?
There are real immaterial things inside this box. You're saying you know about something that's outside of the box.
Okay,
something that created the box itself.
Yeah, I am. We haven't gotten there yet, but so if we agree that
you've got access to something that is woo.
No. You have no better place in terms of justifying access to those things than I do. So we both have to.
I'm not claiming that I do. I'm not claiming that. I'm not claiming those things.
How are they justified?
Oh, you're asking me how is logic justified?
Yeah, how do you justify the existence of extramental objects like that?
Because to say them, to negate them is to enter into contradiction.
Right. So you heard me talk about transcendental arguments, and now you know what a transcendental argument is. So we agree on what a transcendental argument is. Yeah, you did. You said
I never said I don't believe in transcendental arguments.
Right. So you used the transcendental argument. Thank you. I'm glad you did. So all I did was say All I did was say,
and I'm saying that transcendental arguments don't prove God.
I know that.
But we don't have to go that deep. We don't have to go that deep. It doesn't make any sense by definition. You don't have to go into this deep place that no one in the audience is going to understand.
Well,
it doesn't make sense by definition of action.
Hold on, that's a fallacy. That's called the fallacy, the oversimplification fallacy. That's actually a fallacy, dumbass. If you didn't know that, maybe should we get out the list of informal fallacies since you did?
The fallacy is the statement that something being a fallacy doesn't necessarily make the original statement wrong.
Correct.
Great.
So even if something was badly argued, it doesn't make it false.
It's not badly argued. You're contradicting yourself. You're talking about
this is what you said. This is what you said about an earlier statement. Anyway, look, when we had our debate, I did not say that mathematics is something that is esoteric. You specifically just said that earlier, that only I have access to, right? I didn't say that. And you said I said that. What I said was that it's something that points us to the debate. Hold on. It's something that points us to the type of being that God is. Okay. So I said it was an analogy. I did not say that God is a number or anything like that, or that I have special access to God that nobody else has. I never said that. Furthermore, mathematics is very esoteric. It is very difficult. And there's plenty of mathematicians that can show you that. If you look at the way that Apple, when they do their computer programming, it's extremely esoteric and complex. Do you know all the mathematics that goes into motherboards and that kind of stuff? It's extremely complex.
Would I understand what God is?
I'm asking. You said mathematics isn't that complex. It's not some mystical thing that.
No, I'm saying that understanding that God is not a concept that you can hold in your mind is a pretty basic thing. Okay.
Okay, but the arguments the arguments that you're going to use against God, the argument is that the arguments that you use against God also apply to the things that you think are proven by a transcendental argument. So the things that you believe in, like extra material mental objects, universals, when you argue against God, if the predication that you're going to use to try to argue against God is also going to destroy those things.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that you don't have to go that deep. You don't have to go that deep. I can have that debate with you, Jay, but I don't have to go that deep. You constantly, because you reference scripture, you constantly talk about him and the things that he did, how he revealed himself, how he created. You use verbs. You anthropomorphize him.
Right.
Right?
So what?
And I'm saying that you cannot be omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent and act. By definition.
Well, first of all, that's a universal negative. There's no way to prove that. How do you know that can't be done? You can't declare that can't be done. And I can
present a transcendental argument to you, Jay.
As I showed in our debate, your whole case rests on a certain view of act and what act is. Because you are a praxeologist, your argument comes from that discipline and tries to apply every sense in which act ever occurs in the same univocal way. And I argued to you
so define what I mean by action.
You defined it as a source acting towards some definite end, and therefore it lacks, and so it ends.
Employing means to attain definite ends. You give me something. You give me the sense in which you use the word action. Go ahead.
Right. As I explained to you in the debate and in chat multiple times, it's called an analogy. I don't know why it's so difficult.
Why don't you just say what you mean? Why do you have to speak in analogies?
Because of the nature of the entity that we're talking about. If we speak about the number zero or the concept of zero, we use analogies. If we use negative numbers, we use analogies because there's not exactly anything in nature that perfectly lines up to a negative number or zero. So there are all
math is used to express meaning to other people. Okay, just like words are used to express meaning to other people.
That's one thing.
You don't know what you mean, and you can't definitely explain what you mean. You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, hold on. I can explain what I mean. I just said that when we talk about
using analogies, stop using similitudes. Just say what you mean.
No, because that's the definition of our entity, of our God, is that he's known by analogy. So for you to try to wake the debate from the beginning and say that I'm not going to accept anything that's analogous. By the way,
Analogy to what? Analogy to what?
Robert.
How do I know what an analogy is unless I know what the real thing is?
I explained it to you in the debate before. You're just rehashing everything that you already lost. This is pathetic. Listen, when we
I said you were going to say
when we talk about God and his actions, in our view, and you can reject our view, that's your free will, that's fine. But in our view, the God that we're talking about is not just immaterial, he also is personal. So there's a way to have a relationship with him. So when we talk about his actions, they are known through anthropomorphism in the theological terminology. And all that means is that God reveals us to him through analogies, through things like, as I said to you, human justice. When we speak of God as just, we know that what that means in regard to what human justice is, right? If a judge executes somebody, the death penalty, that's considered just. And so we make an analogy and we say that God is just. If we talk about movement in nature, we analogize that to God, and we say that God acts and moves in nature like nature moves and acts. There's nothing strange about that. Listen, because you believe the exact same thing when it comes to the human realm. You don't have access to another individual's psyche or mind. You will use analogies to describe another person's way of being in the world. We all do this.
No, that's not true.
Yes, you do.
Not true.
You
have obviously don't know my science.
Do you have access to me?
I don't understand my science at all.
Do you have access to what it is to be me?
No, I don't. But I have.
So you have to use analogy.
Excuse me. I have access to the logic underlying all actions because I do act.
Wait a minute. I thought you didn't have access to things that are mystical and beyond us.
Nothing mystical about that. It's actually pretty simple, dude.
Okay, so how do you justify something immaterial and universal? Through a transcendental argument, right?
You just cut out on my end.
How do you justify something immaterial and universal? You said a transcendental argument, right?
Yeah.
You said that's something very simple?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So would you believe in?
Would you understand it the moment you ask the question? You can't go further back. Boom.
Would you believe in other concepts of transcendentals like the self?
Yeah. So what?
So how do you know what a self is? You only have an analogy by your experience of what it is to be a self. So you use that analogy for what other people possess or what you think they do.
So you're saying, here you go again.
No, this is where you just got tripped up, dude.
You're trying to say that I don't have the ability to speak generally about things and that I can't communicate.
That's called making an analogy, dummy.
Okay. So you're saying that if I speak definitely about something and I communicate it to you through words.
This is how language works. This is how language works. Use analogies.
I only speak in analogies. So you can never truly understand.
No, I didn't say all words.
Which means what you're really saying is that I can't truly understand what you're saying. So you're not really saying anything. I won the debate.
As I said to you in the debate, there is a level which we do understand and a level to which we don't. This is just a fact of human language. There's aspects that we understand. I don't know everything about you.
Great. So go ahead and disprove my position.
I just did.
No, you didn't.
Use analogies. And
you just described that you can't speak very accurately, but you're not negating my position.
I just did. You use analogies, and you said don't use analogies. Can't use analogies.
I'm not accepting what you're saying. And
I know you're not.
Because it doesn't. Because you're implying that you cannot communicate meaning over to me except through fuzzy concepts that are not accurate. Okay,
no,
well,
this
you're
is
saying
your misunderstanding.
You don't have the ability to win the debate effectively.
Look, dude. This is a very complex issue when it comes to linguistic philosophy. So my position on this question is that when we convey information to another person, there's an aspect to which we do have a connection, but there's also an aspect to which things are hidden. So, for example, when you and I are interacting here, I learn some things about you. I learn about your lack of knowing logic. I learn about your smooth New York apartment or wherever. I'm joking, man. I'm joking. But I don't. There's a lot about you that I don't learn, right? So there's all kinds of facts about Robert that I don't know, and even in our communication, there are subtle things being picked up and things that I don't know. But there are aspects that I am learning. So language always has this dual clear, unclear aspect to it. There's nothing wrong or weird with that.
Wait, hold on. Is that statement itself fuzzy?
Every word, every concept, every interaction like this is to some degree, yeah.
Okay.
So there are things.
So the statement is universal but fuzzy. Okay.
Everything is that way.
Logical and it's true, but
Correct.
It could be wrong, right?
Because of human
The statement itself, you're
Because of
literally
human
pulling a
finitude.
JF on me, man. You're quantum looping me.
Because of human finitude, right? It's a circular argument. I believe that the presuppositional transcendental argument is a circular. I'm saying my argument is a circular argument. I admit that, and that's because at a fundamental level, I think all arguments become circular, and that's why we compare worldviews or paradigms. So, for example, if you ask me, how do you prove that words mean anything without using words? You can't do that, right? So linguistic philosophy is a great example of something that immediately becomes circular. So all I'm saying is that your case against what I'm arguing is no better. You're in the same dilemma to try to make those kinds of arguments.
No, I'm not. I'm speaking very clearly. I choose my words wisely. I'm saying exactly what I mean.
Oh, I know you are.
And I'm not saying that there's anything fuzzy about what I'm saying.
I'm saying that's the case with your position. I know you're denying that, but I'm saying that that's my assessment of your position. You're going to use analogies. It's impossible when you use language.
Okay, so you've defended properties of your position. You've characterized my position. Go ahead and disprove my argument. Go ahead and give me the counterpoint.
Well, I haven't heard a specific argument except for the question of action, and that we can't apply the terms that I use for how God acts to God. And you base that on a case about the fuzziness of human language and so forth.
Which
by the way,
which I don't accept at all. If language was fuzzy, then we wouldn't be able to talk about such deep concepts and build on them. Like no, not at all. Not at all. Like the universe is not fuzzy, and our ability to conceptualize the universe is not fuzzy at all until we reach a limit, and then we have humility and say we don't know. Okay. You don't have that humility. I do. I can say, look, there's parts of there's ideas that I have to take as ultimate givens.
That's a false humility thing. You believe in transcendental arguments just like I do. So you're subject to the same certainty about absolute questions as I am, right? So we both believe that.
But I can accept that I have absolute knowledge, and I can't go beyond that absolute knowledge to question it further. I take it as an ultimate given. That is called humility.
So,
I don't try to go and start building up ridiculous concepts.
So you believe that your finitude limits your statements about universal concepts?
No. Wait. Hold on.
Yeah.
Quick. Go ahead. State this in another way. State this in another way.
You just admitted once again the limitations, and that was my whole point about maybe fuzziness is not a good word. All I was trying to say is that when I learn about you, there are things that I learn about you that are certain, that are clear, that are precise, absolutely. But they're also, in a way, imprecise because there's a lot about you that I don't know, far more about you that I don't know. And in fact,
what does that have to do with the debate? Go ahead.
Because it's based on analogies. All interactions, all transfer of knowledge is based on analogies. And you were trying to argue that. That's so ridiculous. State your point. Don't use analogies. You can't speak about that with analogies.
Wait a second. So what you're saying is that I can't always speak of everything precisely.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So I'll try to keep things that are imprecise out of this debate. How about you do the same thing? Because in the debate,
you made it very precise. You made it very precise not to use analogies.
Hey, no one's going to enter a debate saying, "Hey, look, I may be beat by your impreciseness." That's ridiculous.
That's not the argument. The argument is that you made.
Yeah, how am I going to accept that I'm going to get?
You laid a challenge on me to be precise in my language and to deny analogies, and that's fundamental to how I would argue about God.
No, and I didn't have to mention that you have to be precise. That's what we assume.
I'm explaining what precision is in my perspective. Okay, so. That doesn't mean that we don't know things. It doesn't mean we're relativists. It doesn't mean everything is uncertain. It just means that there's limitations in language because of human finitude. And you just admitted that about a minute ago when you said that I can't go beyond certain things and have humility.
To learn about the limitations of language, dude. Huh? We came here to talk about God and whether he exists or not.
You just made a debate about language.
A very precise concept, dude.
You just made the debate about language, and you said don't use analogies.
So I'd like to try to locate us here in the debate. I think it's very interesting, particularly in relation to the interaction between me and Jay earlier. I think that Robert comes at it with a very different approach, but we join on some points, and then we're totally different on other points. But to clarify, the imperfect, what you guys call the fuzziness, I call it imperfect transfers of information. And as far as I'm concerned, the debate being about God and Jay having in the past said that the existence of God is a certainty, and that some of the characteristics that you attribute to God, Jay, are certain in your view and universal. And to me, that puts the whole fuzziness debate on the side. Now, I don't get what's the problem here, since we are talking about things that you two, although not me, I'm the scientist, moral nihilist, doubter, and relativist and everything. But as far as you two go, you agree that you're debating a statement that is a certainty on the side of Jay. So what's Robert's position on this? Because your argument, do you claim that it relies on fuzziness or not? Robert, do you claim that your
you're
argument...
asking me? I thought you were asking Jay. I'm sorry.
Where does fuzziness comes from you? Because as far as I'm concerned, Jay's position is not about fuzziness at all. So where did this fuzziness come in this debate? Just so I understand, where does it cause problems?
Right. Well, he's claiming. Well, here's where the fuzziness comes up from. So I'm saying that God cannot act by definition, a very clear definition that I'm stating. And Jay is saying, when I use act to refer to God as one of the ways that I know that God exists, I'm being fuzzy. And I'm pushing him, saying, stop being fuzzy. No one would accept going into an argument, into a debate, accepting that they might be beaten by a guy who's the fuzziest, because literally this is the fuzziest that you can be. He literally can't give you a clear definition on what God is. Okay.
So then I will send back to Jay. Jay, you've affirmed that there are universal truths about God that you know, or that you think you know at least. Would the argument just stated by Robert not challenge a part of this, given that he detects a contradiction within your definition of God?
Right, and I do understand what's being said here. And what never did clearly get addressed was that I believe this is sometimes called, this is not a technical fallacy, but when this debate is had, it's sometimes called the crackers in the pantry fallacy. And the reason for that is because it assumes that everything is proven or known in the exact same way. So Robert is asking for a specific type of definition that only fits the limitations of his paradigm. So it sets the bar ahead of time.
Here we go with the worldviews thing again.
Are you gonna let me finish? Because yes, that is the argument, is worldviews. That's the transcendental argument. If you don't accept that, that's fine, but that is the argument. So let me finish what I'm saying. So when he says that the criteria that he puts upon me, I'm fine with saying that I can make those kinds of arguments for how we know the existence of immaterial things, how it applies to numbers, how it applies to these other types of things. But that kind of argument is a trap for his position too, is what I'm saying, because it limits from the outset what is allowed as evidence. And so he's going to toss out the things from the outset that he won't accept, because he's going to say that they're analogies. I'm not going to accept analogies, analogous language for something like that, for a deity. And so if that's central to my case, then all I'm saying is that he's set from the outset what he's going to accept as evidence, and that we need to have a more fundamental question about, well, wait a minute, why are you saying that can't be accepted as evidence in your paradigm? And yes, I'm going to argue paradigms. That's my argument. Do you see? I'm not asking if you agree, but I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Why I was focusing on the point of analogies? It's not to have word games and word salad. It's to make a very specific point that it's crucial to our perspective. Anytime that we're talking about something that goes beyond the immediate experience of things that we know, and this is something I'm just saying that Robert himself admits, because he believes in immaterial universal principles, so they go beyond his immediate direct experience. And I'm saying that the only way he can speak about that is through the limitations of language, which don't perfectly explain or encapsulate the totality of what a universal concept is, or the number one is. And like JF said, it's an imperfect transfer of information, but I do believe it is an absolutely true transfer of information. So I'm not at all.
This is exactly what I said in my opening statements. You're saying that you have tapped into information that is inaccessible to me.
Robert, you just admitted that there's information that's inaccessible, right? So this shouldn't be a problem, right? So yes.
What? Wait. What did I accept as inaccessible? Something that's immaterial doesn't mean that it's inaccessible. Excuse me.
No. But I'm saying that you admit that there are things that are fuzzy, right, or not? I mean, doesn't human finitude limit your knowledge of things like universal concepts?
Yes, and by definition, entering into a debate means that you cannot reference things that are outside of being something that you can't reference to in the debate.
You believe the same thing I do, is all I'm trying to explain, is that you believe that you can speak about something that you don't have a full, precise conception of. That's all I'm saying. And you do it all the time. You've done it throughout the debate.
I want to do one thing. I want to read some relevant super chats before we move on here. Ethnocentrist, $10. Jay, many scholars in history and present agree that Jesus was likely a homosexual. Whether you agree with this conclusion or not, can I be a good Christian and be gay, or am I bound for hell? Thanks.
That was started mainly by 20th century liberal scholars, and particularly is pushed by a famous globalist named Bishop John Shelby Spong, who's an Episcopalian, or I guess we could call him John Shelby Dong. No, this is a part of the sort of gay lobby type thing to really alter the landscape of what traditional Christian theology holds. So,
and can you be Christian and be gay, and is that fine, or are you bound to hell?
Well, what we say is that if you have those kinds of desires, you can't act on them. But no, I mean, it's not like the church doesn't allow people to be members of the church who have that kind of affiliation.
I'll pound through a few more just so we can get through a few of these. Total spills $2 is Robert debating himself. Tekabar a jihadi $2. Let a Muslim get in on this. I want in. D Warbucks $2. I'm an atheist, but Jay's a beast at debates. Gabriel Lopez $10. Software engineer with 12 years experience. Also started a new business in home automating, integrating hardware and software. I'm yet to stumble on esoteric bullshit. Concept taught $10. A Robert that knows where all of itself and its immediate environment is omnipotent in a limited capacity. A God that knows all also can move the things which it is aware of, which would be all things. Anyone want to know? Bend over $10. If we're all human on a basic level, we can use intuition to understand other human beings, at least on a general level. It's not called an analogy. Also, if I hear analogy one more time, he's getting upset. Too quick too, $10. God revealed himself in Baked's downfall. Robert is not even on Jay's level, on his heels since his opening statement. Happy boy, sword guys.
That might be true.
Oh, you think so? Happy boy.
That might be true because he keeps talking about these fuzzy concepts that he can't make any clearer to me. So yes, I guess
that you just admitted, by the way.
I guess he's higher than me.
Yeah. Happy boy, sword guys, $2. Jay is wiping the floor with this smug Gen X homo. Any response? No. All right. Hobbs, $2. You want to bitch out Aaron, but we'll listen to this. Hobbits and Hobbs has been very upset at me through super chats that I'll be reading later about me being mean to Aaron. Tyler Durden, what's up, buddy? $5. Dude, you couldn't debate your way out of a paper bag, let alone Jay. So stop calling the chat dumb and button your fucking shirt. Hail Warski. Ooh, some shots being fired at Robert here.
I like his style.
Yeah,
hey.
Finally, someone looking good other than me on the show. I think
shut
it's
it. Shut it. I'm gonna wear. I have to fucking wear a suit next time. Atheist chaplain, 50 sec. How would anyone explain complex engineering to a child without using analogies, provided the kid knows the entire alphabet?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm the kid in this
honestly, I don't
example.
see why this is contentious, except that Robert has to say it to hold his position.
Blunderbuss, $5. Song request. Can JF sing American Goyim, Get Away From Me?
No.
No. Okay, Travis Hunt.
But we have Leecher, €10, says, heaven can't be real because the moment I'd be joined by non-whites, it wouldn't be heaven for me anymore. I agree, JF.
Jesus.
No,
Travis
I don't
Hunt.
think that. I mean, the question doesn't make sense to me because I don't believe in heaven.
Hey, JF, does my my skanky appearance with a golden girl shirt, did that offend you? With your swank style?
No, I think you don't look bad. I think that you look average, and I'm trying to get this show to look top. That's what I was trying to do with Aaron, but
I'll wear a suit.
failed.
It failed. Beyond. Travis Hunt, $2. Can't give much, but here's something. A good show. Thank you very much. Autistic Accountant, $20. Thank you very much. Trap No State Treasurer here. Andy, please check your YouTube inbox for my message. Thank you. Yeah, I'll check that out. Leecher, €10. Thank you very much. Heaven can't be real because the moment. Oh yeah, that's the one you just read. Mr. Misanthrope, $5. God is evil. DFC, $5. This show is always great. Thanks. And last one for now, Frederick White, $5. JF blocked me from Twitter and his live streams. Did I trigger you, JF?
You didn't trigger me. You triggered my action of blocking for some reason. I don't remember why I block people because I block about 100 people every day.
See,
Andy,
here's a man who understands that when some reason makes them want to do something, they go ahead and use means, press block, and get the end that they want. Never have to hear that guy again. That's what action is.
Theory of Robert. Now, because we have lots of things to cover, we're going to have to cut the debate short. And so I'd like to hear a last statement from each of you, however long you want, on what you get from the conversation, how you structure your argument, did it change, and what you generally think of the interaction that just occurred. And maybe we can start with Jay.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I thought it was good to get heated like this and kind of do a little rematch. If anybody's interested, you know, there's a 3-hour version of this discussion that we had that goes into more detail. I feel like we end up getting stuck on the question of the possibility of numbers and universal concepts and these kinds of things, not because I'm trying to distract from the theology debate, but because that's where it usually gets back down to, is a fundamental question about language, about meaning, about what kind of things do and don't exist. So maybe eventually we can kind of move into how I would, if I debate Robert again or somebody, how I see this leading more clearly to God. But to make it really quick, Robert agrees with me that there are a bunch of things that he thinks are transcendentally true. So I applaud him for seeing the strength and the force of a kind of transcendental argument that has a lot of logical force, but I don't think he understands the implications of it. And so what I always try to do is try to flesh out these implications more. And I think that when we consider what we mean by a divine mind and this kind of stuff, it tends to make a lot more sense. And we can see that there is all of these minor transcendentals can be sort of compacted into one giant transcendental. How do we make sense of all these things together in a worldview or a paradigm? And I think that God is the best explanation for that. So that's the argument in short. But no, I don't find Robert's rehashed. He told me he was going to bring something new. It was all rehashed in my view.
And I'll conclude by saying that when when you understand English and you understand what people use the word action to mean, there's 3 types of action. Well, you either talk about spasms, things that are outside of your control, things that people often will say, like, I hit him under the knee and his knee moved. Okay, in that case, you're talking about a spasm, something that's outside of the control of the will. When you talk about a cat doing something, you're talking about instinct. Okay, and we call that something like a sublogical action. But when we talk about humans, we're talking about a thing that, like a word that Jay loves to use, is telos, purpose behind the action. And so there, yes, you are referencing deeper concepts like concepts of the will. And so when God, when he talks about God, he's talking about God doing things for reasons. Okay, it wouldn't make any sense for him to reference God spasmodically, because then God would not have been able to create man in his image. And so action in this sense means applying means, scarce means, to attain definite ends. And in that very definition that we all use, that we all understand, that is what action is, human action. In that case, the concept of God falls apart. You cannot be omnipotent, have all power, omniscient, know all things, and omnipresent, exist in all times and all spaces, and still lack something. Okay, bring about change, be in a state of wanting a new reality, using means to attain that new reality, and then being in that new reality. Okay, action implies causality. God cannot exist by definition if action implies causality, which it does. Anybody who speaks English understands that.
All right, guys, and someone on the super chat sends us and says Jay Dyer has a good imitation of Andy.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
You're right. You know what? It kills my vocal cords. I'm gonna do it, but dude, like I tried to do it on a stream the other day, and I was like falling out, choking, dying. So Andy's, you know what? There is some kind of Kabbalistic magic that Styx is doing, and I noticed in this Kabbalah book here, I think Andy's got the Kabbalah power too, because every time I do an Andy impersonation, my throat, it's like some kind of demon or something. Anyway. Oh shit, JF, what is up? How you doing? Got a bunch of super chats. Oh shit.
What?
Not bad, not bad. It was fascinating to see you guys, and it was fascinating to see Jay Dyer be more of a relativist than someone else.
Exactly.
I didn't expect that.
Exactly. Yeah,
and so we're kind of embedded into each other, into our argument, where Robert is supralogical to Jay, Jay is supralogical to me. I'm at the zero state of recognizing universal truths. It was quite fascinating.
JF, when he says that he knows about, he can tap in and access things that are outside of time and space,
like you
right?
do, dummy.
No, outside of time and space.
I say they're in
outside of time. What you really mean to say is without exception.
You think
when you say outside of time and space, you're giving a geographical property to something, which means it creates in the mind that you're floating outside there in the ether next to a computer in a Quebecois eating quantum loops.
Jay is fucking
Jay, a response before we move on to the next segment. And Andy, there is something surprising happening. Nick has joined. It's gonna be insane.
I sent Nick the link because there's a few things that we need to ask Nick about, and everyone's welcome to stick around for the third hour. We have a lot of things to talk about. I want to ask Nick a few things that have been going on our show, as well as things on the Twitterverse. Shit might get a little bit hot here. Nick the Knife Fuentes was supposed to be on today, and shit switched around, and man, okay, anyway, yeah, so Jay, if you want to throw
Jay is response, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to say I hope I can stay around to talk shit.
Of course.